consumption of water in relation to the overall household income, we found that it has a very low percentage of expenditure of every family on water consumption, and it is less than 5%. And the important point that we found out was, as you move from the lower strata of income from the people to the higher strata of people, for the consumption and the money spent by those families on water, the percentage of the amount spent on consumption of water comes down, further falls down as the income of the family rises. So the issue boils down that when we consider about the price sensitivity, the amount of money spent by the families on the consumption of water is so minuscule that, and it is an essential element. If you look into the both issues, the price sensitivity of water falls down very drastically, and we found that the generally the consumption and demand of the water for drinking and daily household use is price insensitivity, and it falls further. The sensitivity falls further as the income group rises. We go for a group of household which have higher income. So what we have found is the consumption of water is price insensitivity, but in that also it is the sensitivity of the lower income group is higher, and that becomes an important policy input, where we have to consider that the lower income, the marginalized people, the poor sections of the society, for them the price sensitivity is higher than the people or household groups which have higher income. So if you look this point into consideration, then pricing of the water is not very important as a tool for consumption of water. This is quite different from the general perception that price can be used as a tool to manage water. So therefore, various schemes of the government, various policies, etc., we find that there at least essential potable drinking water for daily household activities, which is very important for the day-to-day life, sanitation, health, etc., should be provided by the public government as a public merit good, and the pricing should not be there. This is one of the important points that I would like to underline. Then the third point that I would like to underline here for our discussions and further research reports or anything is about the doctrine of public trusteeship. We have been this year talking about the groundwater. The issue in our country is whether who owns the groundwater, who owns the water. And our constitution is very clear on this aspect, is that the groundwater or river water or other water, the ownership of this water resources in the country is with the government only in the form of a trusteeship. The ownership is not there even with the government. So when the ownership of water is not there with the government, nobody who doesn't have the ownership can transfer it or create rights on the water. So the third important aspect I would like to mention here is, in our constitution is very clear that the water resource, all resources of the country regarding the water, there is a doctrine of public trusteeship. The government, local body, authorities, etc., are not the real owner of the water. It is the public which owns, and they have as a trusteeship have to manage the distribution and availability and other things. So this is the third point that I would like to mention here. And the fourth, the most important point, and in addition to this, is on the water right issue. At present in India, there is no legal law on the ownership of water, provision of water. It is only through the derived rights from the court cases that we say that right to water in the country is part of Article 21, where right it is part of right to life, because it is an essential element for the life of the people. So therefore, the right it is part of right to life, where there are several court cases which cast the duty on the government to provide drinking water, free drinking water to everybody, potable drinking water in the form of a derived right as a part of right to life. So what is important at present also in the future discussions is that we need to have a very certain larger perspective, where there is a law which clearly defines the responsibility, puts the right to water in some legal framework. At present, there are no law governing specifically provision of water to all citizens. So this is an important part which is under the debate in the various platforms, and which should form a part of the larger debates. And in India, the status of water it is a state subject, and there are conflicts around the water being use of water between different states. So certain issues which further need discussion on the part of everybody is about the issue about interlinking of water, interlinking of rivers, ecological feasibility of the interlinking of rivers. It's not a merely an economic issues which has to be discussed, because our constitution provides that provision of water is a state subject, though interlinking of rivers is a part of the central government. They can make policies with regard to allocation of river water, etc. So this is an important issue where further discussion and clarification is needed. In the last point that I would like to mention is that considering all these issues, water right issue, various conflicts involved in the equitable access and other competing uses, etc., whether it should be considered as an economic commodity, or what is the price sensitivity, how the consumption by the marginalized or poor sections have to be impacted, and the government is taking several initiatives through Jal Jeevan Mission, provision of tapped water to every household. Then what will be the costing, because there is definitely a cost involved into the purification and the provision and distribution of water. So these costing issues, etc., have to be resolved, and I think there is a high time that we have a national water framework law. And in 2016 our government did try to come out with a national water framework of law which tackled all these issues, including the state and center and ownership of groundwater, etc. But that did not find the light of the day because it was lapsed. And though we need a very strong, clear-cut national framework water law, that is important, that I would like to mention. And the last point that I would like to say here is for conservation. So conservation of water is very important, because we see that there can, if water is not properly conserved and preserved, then we can lead to a situation where there will be serious water stress into various areas and various seasonal differences, etc. So there has to be a strong conservation move from everybody, and for that the best methodology which comes out from our discussion and study is creating awareness on the conservation, making conservation a mass movement, conserving water bodies, conserving groundwater, recharge of groundwater. All these issues required working. So to meet out a water for everybody, these issues need a lot of clarity and discussions. Some of the issues, important issues that I have dealt with in my just small presentation have been in detail with the survey report, research report, have been dealt in this my book that Mr. Chatterjee was mentioning, we have tried to deal with these issues and are working on the ground to meet out these issues. So, with this opening remark, I would like to thank Cuts for giving me this opportunity to give my opening remarks.
Thank you, Gopalji. I mean, given everything that you have said, it's very evident that looking at water, particularly potable drinking water as a public good, is not a difficult subject. But we need to do a number of reforms, both at the national as well as state level.